guys, I hope you can hear me okay. I've got my one of my fans on here, and it kind of is picking up on my mic, but not a lot I can do. I've shut off what I can. So hopefully you're not getting all that background noise. And today's Q&A, you get to ask me, woohoo, things that you want to about me. So feel free to ask, just like, hello, Samius. Thank you. So it's more like today I'm not going to be reading the cards so much. I have had to kind of put those to the side for a while, family issues and stuff, but good issues, but just like helping people out. So that's where my energy's been. And I see a few more cases I want to cover in addition to Nolan Wells. I want to reread on Tasia's case. I usually do more than one reading. I just haven't had the ability to get back and do more readings on her like I usually do. I take little notes and everything off camera. And then I bring it back up. Yeah, it sounds like the rain, doesn't it? I don't know why it is. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I shut off this. Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. It's my I've got two sets of fans. And I just need to... Here we go. Put it on quiet. There we are. That's better. I completely forgot about that internal set of fans that come with this laptop. But it does keep it from overheating. So no more of the white noise effect. Anyway, as I was saying, I want personally to get the time now to focus also on Tasia's case and on a case, I can't remember the name of the state, but another case of that could be a hate crime potentially. Man's name is Lon, Lonn, and I think it's Hartman. And he was at a festival, I think it was called the Bliss Festival, as a dancer, and it was unfortunately attacked. So, good. That's what, it's fine, it sounds relaxing, thank you. That's just it, that if I'm going to fall asleep, I put on water, like noise, like hard rainfall. And for my daughter, if she's in the room, she's like, that makes me want to pee. Can you please shut that off? Like, I'm just relaxing. But there you go. So if you want to today, you can ask me questions about myself. This is what I've never done a live, particularly where people could ask me about myself. So I thought I'd start throwing a few of these out there so that you can... I'm a pretty open person. You can ask me. I don't care if people ask me about my age or my disability, which I do have. Feel free. And as we're chatting along, something might occur to you. And it's just going to be chit chat today. And then I'm going to put in for another live where I do take your questions. I take the first 5 questions usually every Sunday at 4. So I will return to doing that after this live. But I thought, that might be good. So I've got some questions here. I've got one from Isadora. I've got a question from Chomi, but it isn't... If I can get to it, I will later. It's about their dog. Because I've tried to let people know that this live would be where Q&A. You could ask me questions if you wanted to. Okay, I'm just going to collect these up. Yes, I've got membership now underway, and I've kept it down to, what was it? I think $2.99. Anyway, I'm trying to keep it under $5 because, it's the point of having it isn't to make a lot of money, because you know nobody's doing that hardly anymore on YouTube anyway, and that's not why I'm here. I definitely put more money into it than I make, but yes, and I have some new things coming up. Yeah, and I will take a look at that, Chomi. I will. But this is really more Q&A. Oh, that's a good one, James. Got it. And let me just get Chomi your question, because I love animals. I mean, human animals are a little difficult, but if they got fur, feathers, you know, scales, whatever, I pretty much, it's a given. I just love creatures. All creatures, great and small. Except for ticks and mosquitoes. Don't understand why we have them. I'm sure there's a purpose, but not a fan. All right. So I'm going to take this first question from my mod, Isadora. How did I meet my husband? Well, my husband's name is Ben, and he's originally from London, England. And I met him in a dive bar. I did, in the Lower Haight in San Francisco. So if you know anything, or if you don't know anything about the Lower Haight Street area, that's where there's a lot of bars and little coffee shops, and there's a lot of 60s kind of retro shops and things like that. That's where a lot of the hippies all came through, the Haight-Ashbury area. But on the Lower Haight, it's a little bit more chancy. You know, it's more risky there, and it has been known to be that for years. But it's still part of the Haight. And one night I went out with a friend. I was all of 20. Oh God, I wasn't even legal to drink. I was just right under that age. That's right. I'm remembering I was 20, and I met him. It was called the 1%? It's no longer there. And it was just this little bar that was kind of nice, but nothing fancy. It was kind of a more of a hole in the wall kind of bar. And it was so funny because I went out with my girlfriend. Her name was Debbie, God rest her soul. She passed from cancer. But she used to take me to all the cool places in San Francisco. And I'd gotten tired of the club scene and that sort of thing. And when you're in a wheelchair, such as myself, I'm paraplegic, which means I'm not able to walk. And from waist down, I have paralysis and lack of feeling. So going to these bars is pretty much like going and sitting and being ignored for the most part. But I thought, well, all right, after about a month of sitting home, I thought, oh, I'll go out with her this time. And as I was getting ready, I was thinking, I wonder if I'll meet someone. And then I remember thinking, just don't even, just go and have fun. And that's the best advice I ever gave myself or for anyone else. And so I focused on that. And we went to this little dive bar, and that's where in the Lower Haight where I met my husband. He walked in. He had one tooth missing that had been knocked out, and he was wearing these really old cut-off jean pants. You know, he was roughing it and traveling through, going to Australia to see about maybe living there. And so he had this visa, and he stopped off in San Francisco, and that's how we met that night. He walked in, and I saw him, and I thought, even despite the missing tooth, he had this sandy blonde hair, and I just thought he was so cute. So I just made a kind of a face at him, kind of a weird face, and just turned around. I didn't think he was going to bother with anything, but he ended up coming over to me, and we ended up chatting, the night away. And I just could not believe that this guy was going to take me seriously. I'd been there, especially with the chair, and trying to date, even as a young person, was just awful, to be honest. So I ended up going on home, and I just got back home, got into my pajamas, got into my bed, and my phone rings, because this is back in the day of landlines. And it was 2 a.m. And I thought, oh my God, this got to be that guy I met. It was him, and he had the phone, and he was roommating there with, like, I don't know, 3 other Irish guys. And he took the phone into the bathroom. He had to pull the cord into the bathroom and then shut the door. And so I asked him, I knew the sound. I said, "You in the bathroom?" And yeah, he admitted to it. He's like, "Yeah, just." I said, "Why are you, calling me this early?" And I said, "You afraid I gave you the wrong number or something?" Because, like, I don't do that. Never would lead anybody around by the nose. If I didn't want you to, if I had no intention of knowing you further, you would not get my number. You would not, that would be it. But he was just making sure I gave him the right number and making sure that I got home okay, which was fine. That was very sweet. And that's how I met my husband. And the Australian connection is through my husband. He comes from a large Irish-Italian family and grew up in London. And a lot of his aunties and uncles moved to various other places other than Ireland and England. They went to Australia, a lot of them. And hey, Ellen, and that's how where the Australia comes in. So my husband was continuing to, he had a visa there for Australia before he was my husband, to where he could work there and work for family. He was working for his uncle. Like I said, there was some of the family of his large extended family had already moved there. And so that's where he was just going to check it out and see about moving there. But then he met me. And about a year later, we decided to get married, and we got married in Australia. And in Morphett Vale, which is South Australia, and the oldest little Catholic church there, because my husband's Catholic. I think it's the oldest. It might be definitely in South Australia, the oldest stone, little tiny St. Mary's Church in Adelaide or Morphett Vale, because we were living in Morphett Vale with when I went there to visit, with his aunt and uncle. They had a larger home, and he was able to stay there. That's where he stayed. And then when he told them that he wanted to marry me, they were true Murphys by the fact that they got a horse and carriage hired. They did all this stuff, and I didn't even know about it. It was a wonderful surprise. Great family. Now there's even more Murphys that have moved. And what's the other? Malloys. It's got Malloys, Murphys, my husband's side of the family, all in Australia. And in fact, one of his uncles and aunties, they lived originally in Birmingham, there in UK, in England, and they ended up moving after retirement to Australia. But they just recently visited us here in San Francisco, because they're getting on a little bit, and they wanted to come and visit us, and that was really nice. It's like a 17.5-hour flight or more to Australia, so just to get to Sydney. So that flight is, as they say, just knackers you. It does. Oh, yes, and Miss D here, she's living in Australia. She's Australian, right? You've only visited Adelaide once. It's so romantic. Yeah, and then we had quite the adventure. Then we had to drive all the way to Sydney, New South Wales, and we drove through the outback with no AC, no air conditioning. We were wanting to kill each other by the end of it. But hey, it proved that we could withstand a marriage. And we dropped off some large batteries to some people that were living off the grid at the time in the outback. And then we stayed for a little while, and Sydney took care of some business there before returning back to Morfett Vale. What does this say? Oh, excellent. And if you ever come over for a visit, and if you stay in Melbourne, let me know. I will. Personally, at 50, I'm almost 58, and I know that's not old, but with my paralysis and issues currently, it's pretty doubtful, to be honest. I just have kind of figured that, and I'm glad that I did a lot of the traveling when I was a lot younger and more resilient. But never say never, right? And if I did, I would definitely let you know. Yes, no AC. We had, unfortunately, the guys had overinflated the tires a bit, and it was over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And these tires on the, it was like a, kind of like almost, what would you call that? Almost like a Volkswagen bus type style of van, but they're really popular in Australia, and I can't remember the name of it, but it wasn't a VW. But the tires kept exploding because it was so effing hot, and it was just incredible. It really was incredible. And we made it in on a luck and a prayer. The thing was leaking oil a bit as well. We borrowed the vehicle from neighbors, some really nice neighbors of my husband's uncle and auntie there in Morfett Vale. God rest their souls, I'm sure, at this point. But that was, oh my God, that was like driving through a convection oven. I do not recommend. Always make sure that you have AC. Of course, this was back in 1990, all right? That sounds like 1890 to a lot of people. And we have, does your husband, as a Catholic, think about my being? He's very open. He's not a rigid, super religious person. He's more spiritual. And occasionally, when he does feel like when he's moved to go to Mass, it's more for almost the meditation of being in that presence. He's not really big on, involved in the church or anything like that. It's much more personal and private for himself. And he tolerates me, but he doesn't think any less. He's open to it. He knows that I've picked up on stuff that has been weird. He knows especially about my dreams, because he's had to come out and ask me if I was okay, because I can go through some stuff when I have certain kinds of dreams. And a lot of times, like, I'll be talking or shouting or, whatnot. So he's known, and he knew about the dream I had about COVID before COVID. And I tell him stuff about dream about people I didn't know that were passed away. Then we'd see the case on the news. I'd say it was that child or that person. He's the one person actually that is seen on a more private level how upsetting it is for me, how it can wear me down. And as an introvert, I tend to keep pulled back, but I have to recharge. But that's really hard. You do need someone that can understand, and luckily my husband does. I wouldn't stay married to him, and I'm sure he wouldn't be able to tolerate me if he wasn't a little bit more open-minded. So I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. Yes, it was quite an outback adventure, because it was right from October to, I was there 3 months from, October, November, December. I went back in early January of 91. That's right, because I got pregnant with my daughter in February once Benny came back to the States. I came back to the States before him. He got things ready and stayed there for another month, and then came back to the States in February. Yeah. It was definitely an adventure, especially in the wheelchair and getting around places. I weighed a lot less then. We were both really a couple of sticks. Let's see here. It sounds like the two of you connected spiritually. Definitely. Definitely. He's been through thick and thin with me. He's seen how difficult it was for me to. I was pregnant, had our children, and he helped tremendously because in the middle of the night I couldn't see to get the catheter in and relieve my bladder. So it's like, hey, honey, you're getting up with me, and he did. He certainly didn't stick around because if he didn't love me, let's put it that way, he wouldn't stick around. There's not much of an up, and he's done a lot. Do I believe in soul contracts? Yes, I do. I honestly do. And I do often think, what the hell was I thinking? And I'll tell you why. And it's often because of something that I've realized in hindsight, as much of us do once we're of a certain age and get a little older. 2 weeks before my accident, when I was 17, I had this urge to see what it would be like to be not be able to move my legs. I was thinking, like, what would it be like to be paralyzed? And it's this kind of subtle stuff and then the direct message that I'll get through the dreams. But it's always come to me in some kind of way. And often I've realized, and like I've said, in hindsight, looking back at it, oh my God, that's what that meant. Didn't even realize it at the time. So now I've learned to trust that a little bit more, even though it might feel nebulous or subtle. It's still a process. So that's part of why I believe that I have like a soul contract. And I think that there's certain things that I agreed to take on. And I believe that we have certain exit points, often more than one. I think I had an exit point at the time of my accident that I could have ended up deceased. I was very fortunate that I didn't have more injuries than I did, which was I shattered my T12L1, which is right around your belly button and just below it. I shattered those two vertebrae. Shattered them because I was went through. Well, I was ejected out of a car. Luckily, the window broke out before I was ejected out of the car. I didn't lose consciousness until I hit the ground. After the ejection, and it was weird. The weird thing, too, was that while the accident was happening and the car was rolling side over side, things in the car were coming up and hitting me in the face. I got 2 black eyes, or a black eye and a half, just from objects in the vehicle. That's another thing. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt at the time. Please, please, please. You might get hurt from wearing your seatbelt, but it's definitely going to be probably less than if you weren't wearing it. And I bounced out. I saw the window break out, and then I just like got bounced. And I went up and out and kind of turned, and I ended up landing on my back, and it knocked the wind out of me. I had dirt and gravel, and because it was a farmer's field. This is in rural Missouri, near St. Joseph, which is not far from Kansas City. So this is in February, and this is like in 1986. There aren't like lights and stuff out there. It's the boondocks. So it caused me to go through a huge spiritual growth at 17 and realizing a lot of stuff that like I said about, oh, now I know why I was wondering about what it'd be like to be paralyzed. And it was weird. That night that I went out, I tried to get hold of all the friends I could think of, and I ended up going out with people that I didn't normally go out with. And that's another thing I taught my daughters about growing up. Be mindful of, you know, who your friends are. And if you never don't feel comfortable, call us. But so anyway, I wouldn't have been in the accident had I not gone out with these people and we not been driving out in a rural area. So that's definitely kicked off that big spiritual journey. And it was already kind of going in my life because as a child, being born in St. Joseph, Missouri, 1968, lower income family, even though my dad was an associate professor, this is small town. This is not it sounds fancy, but it's not. And so we grew up in part of the town and then outside in a place called Agency, which is an all-white community pretty much. Sorry, I've got really bad sinuses today, and I just took my antihistamine, so hopefully this will clear up. Excuse me. You rolled your car. Isadora says she rolled her car but was wearing the seatbelt. Luckily, you only suffered a wrist injury. See? Now, that's something it's always going to give you trouble, but it's not going to be like the complications that you get with when you get more serious injuries. For me, now it's constant bladder infections because you catheterize, and pressure ulcers. You lose tone and things like that, and you have to maintain that. It's very, very hard, even if you're an active person. And I was a very active paraplegic up until I started getting arthritis and chronic pain. And then my doctor didn't want to prescribe me, the doctor I had didn't want to prescribe me the kind of pain pills that I needed. And I'm not abusive to my medication. They test me and all of that now. That's the only way you can get even just Norco that I take, the least amount of what I have to. But that's what slowed me down. Otherwise, gardening, and I'm just getting back into it, but I have to be careful. So that's yeah, I do. I didn't pass out during the accident. I saw the headlights of the other car coming, and see that what happened was we were out on a winding country road. It's dark. Like I said, this is 1986, which sounds like 100 years ago. And the guy that was driving the car was going too fast. And in order to make this corner, he had to go into the other lane, the oncoming lane. And me and my friend were yelling at him to slow down because he was an idiot. Never allow an idiot to drive you. That's the other thing. All teens and adults should be reminded of. And as he's doing so, we're about rounding this corner and this other car comes. And in order to not hit them, but not go into this bank of a hill, he can't go as far out as he needs to go. So we hit them, and it seems like it's just going to be a little fender bender, I'm thinking, and just to hold on tight. But he can't control the car. I can hear him putting on the brakes, and we smash into the hillside, which causes the car to fly off and then barrel roll and side over side. And that's when I get ejected. We went over 75 feet. The car went over and barrel rolled, and I was ejected. And I was the worst out of them, injured, because I'm a smaller person, didn't have a lot of meat on my bones to protect me. And I wasn't wearing my heavy coat. To be honest, as hard as I slammed into that ground, I don't think having the coat on, thinking about it now, would have mattered. It wouldn't have stopped the shattering of those two vertebrae. And what happens is when those bones explode, they become like little glass shards into your spinal column. And your spinal column goes into shock. And sometimes, if you're lucky, and you get help, and people don't move you around, that should never happen. And I asked people to move me around, so I own that, because I thought the car was going to explode. But, like I was saying, that will damage your spinal cord, and even if your spinal cord is just shocked, you don't have to tear it. You can become paralyzed for life. And I know they're coming out with all kinds of chairs and fancy gadgets, that robotic things, but the thing is, most insurance doesn't cover that. And most people will not have access to that life-changing kind of, what would you call it? Come on, brain. Well, gear, like my wheelchair's my gear. So I appreciate it when people say, hey, they're coming up with this and that, and that's great. But the problem is the money isn't being put there. It's going toward billionaires that, like Elon, and they're taking away the from kids as well. And we're going to have more accidents, more people like me, with all these wars. Where was I sitting in the car? I was sitting behind the driver. It was a Buick sedan, and it was a rather nice car. His dad worked for an insurance company, and I was lucky that that we could sue them to get the kind of money that I would need for the care and all the surgeries, hundreds of thousands, of dollars, probably into the million. And I was lucky that I got a settlement. Most people don't, or they don't know. My mom was involved with law before my accident, so my mom was on it. She knew people, and so I ended up having my mom really fighting for me. And most people that don't have family don't do well. I saw that too. And what I ended up doing, goes back to the question about the soul contract. I ended up going to San Francisco to the Shriners Hospital, because I was lucky enough. My dad had worked at this little college. His secretary, she was such a great lady. Her husband was a Shriner, and she busted a move for me and got me in to have my care and my other further surgeries covered. But I had a choice to go to Chicago, San Francisco, and maybe, I don't know, some other place at the time. This was back in 1986. And my mom had only just arrived to the San Francisco Bay Area when my accident happened. I was actually supposed to be going with her, but I thought it was too far away, and I chickened out, and it seemed too big. I should have gone with her. But see, there was an option. I could have gone with her. I would have lived a different life. I wouldn't have been probably injured. Who knows, maybe later. But I was really meant to come out to California. And I ended up coming out here. So I chose San Francisco, and for Shriners, the care after my accident, through my dad's secretary, had me flown out here. And I was very fortunate, because there's a lot of kids that would come up from Mexico that didn't have any family, or other kids from various states that didn't have family that were there. And I bounced back quite well, but I had to go through, I think, 3 or 4 different surgeries within 2 months. And it was rough. I couldn't eat for 2 weeks. I had like a posterior and anterior back fusions, and I ended up getting really bad neurological sound pain. It was wild. And I look like, honestly, there's pictures of me. If I can find them again, I will post them up. I wouldn't normally do that, but I'm old enough now that I'm not that proud. You know, it is part of my journey, and I think it should be shared with people because I know other people will go through it, or it will help other people to understand. So I look like I'd been in a starvation camp. You know, I looked, my mom said, "You look like you came out of Treblinka." And that's my mom's quote. And yeah, I did. But clearly that's not my problem now. Now I'm gaining my weight, but I still have to make sure I keep a balance. When you're in a chair, you don't want to get too fat because you've got to do all the upper, lifting that you can. If you want to stay as independent as possible. And I'm still trying to do that. That's why, even though I'm still on my air mattress and I'm slowly healing, I've got 2 pressure ulcers that I am healing right now. This started around COVID. That's right. Because I had to go. That was another adventure. I've had quite the adventurous life. I had to go stay over in Oakland in a nursing home after I had one surgery, and that was not a very well taken care of place. But I learned a lot, and I befriended 2 wonderful older ladies of color that I took care of, that some people were trying to get away with taking advantage of them. And that was not going to happen. They were my roommates, and that was Miss Williamson and Miss Gertie, and God rest their souls. But they were my roommates, and I learned a whole other part of life and got to know them about their way of living. And I knew I was meant to be in that hospital. I stayed there longer than I had to. My husband said, "Maya, your care is pretty intense. I don't think I'm up to it." And I knew it was too much for me at that time, and it would have been. And I was really traumatized by this place because it was not well maintained. But I became very protective of Miss Gertie. She was nearly 100, and Miss Mother Williamson, as Gertie called Miss Williamson. And what an honor and a pleasure it was to help them. And that's why I'll always be doing whatever I can do to try and help other people, because it can be you, it can be your family so easily. And if that was my grandma, great grandma that was in there, I would hope that another person would think of them as their, relatives and look out for them. So that's the attitude I take with me wherever I go. And it served me well. I gotta say, it's opened my eyes. Oh yeah, Bezos, boo on Bezos. Oh yes, I've had several dark nights of the soul. This was one of them. This was one of the big, big ones. Enduring a loss of freedom as you age, as a disabled person. Ooh, that one's really tough. Really, really tough. And, able-bodied people understand as you age, the less freedom you suddenly have. But, when you're disabled, it's I can't describe than to say it's even more devastating. And I think our dark night of the souls are tremendous opportunities of growth, though they're very painful. And I've learned, God, I feel kind of corny saying it, but it's true. Despite how awful something is, it's better to lean into it. When you're going through hell, keep going through. Don't, stall and stay there if you can help it. But I've chosen a really difficult life, and I know that. I can tell by numerology. I've got some master number 11 in there as my birth number. So that's my blueprint. I came in picking a really difficult life. And there's people that have harder lives than me. So it's like, I don't want to complain. And I don't believe in doing that. I believe in letting people know now when something's difficult for me, which was and still remains very challenging, because it's just so much faster if you can do it yourself. And other people are tired, and they're not always friendly when you ask them to help you to do something, family especially. That's dealing with that. Yeah, Shriners, Pennsylvania, that was probably the other place. Shriners Hospital. Got here like, hi, Walter. Yes, my accident that caused my paralysis happened when I was 17 in 1986. February 22nd in the early morning, like 12 midnight, 1 o'clock. Because one of the things was, because we were out in the middle of bum F boondocks, the first ambulance couldn't find us, so we had to wait an extra 45 minutes once we did finally flag a car down to get help, because again, this is the age landlines, not people having a phone right there. And we had to, wait for an ambulance, that second ambulance, to finally make it out there, out in the countryside. So my golden hour quickly evaporated. I had been moved. They lifted me up over a fence. They tried their best, but when they first found me and I was laying there, they said, Maya, get up. And I said, I can't. And they were like, come on, quit playing. Don't say that. And I said, look, y'all, I'm really hurt. There's something wrong. And I couldn't move my legs. It was so weird. You can see your legs, but they look different. I didn't feel any pain at that moment, but when they tried to sit me up with my torso, I screamed. And that's how they knew as well. Because, we were teenagers. I was 17, they were 18, maybe 19. We're all kids. But yeah, don't move people if the thing isn't on fire. For sure. Triplified. Mine is 9. Ah, that's another. We're mastering up some stuff. And I feel it too, because as a child I saw spirits. I still do. And it's never, ever on my own initiation. God, the force, whatever you want to call it, sends it to me. It is not under my control, so I don't just whip things out of a hat. I can do readings, but I am using cards to help me access my extra conscious awareness, that's present. But I've always been super sensitive. And I have a memory that goes back to being around age of 2. There's things I can remember. I think that's part of it as well. I feel like an old soul. And I'm pretty sure most of us that feel that way are. It's a hard planet, and I think that's the truth. You don't come here to take it easy. And Ellen says, I had my dark night of the soul. I was only in the beginning on my spiritual journey. And the journey of the soul helped me a lot. That's right. Because the dark night of the soul really, in my opinion, helps us to move away the obstacles that are kind of plugging us up from moving more freely forward in our growth. It's our attachments that we need to let go of. Typically maladaptive ways of coping. I used to drink a lot up to about the age of 48 when I stopped. I had to be there for my kids. I have both of my adult kids have special needs. So, I needed to wise up and wake up. And that was my second one. It's like, now you got to put that crutch away, girl. And I couldn't be happier, honestly. It does take a lot more strength to handle things sober than it does when you're not with it. So the only thing I use is cannabis, and I don't want anything else. I'm not interested, and most of that comes for pain. And I don't want to feel out of sorts. I want to be able, if there is an emergency within my family, to be sober-minded. And it's for the love of my family and the love of myself. Time to grow up, That's why I also quit drinking. And that was, so many of those dark lessons in there. And then you got to deal with the shame of how you felt and things that you did that you shouldn't have done, and be accountable. And I'd much rather be sober and aware, have it, just let's deal with it right here, right now, change the dirty diaper, so to speak, and move on. I think more people should do that than trying to run. You became so jaded you stopped being spiritual. I can understand that, Isadora. You're trying to regain your powers. Yep, and this is really what we're meant to do. We come here to this planet, and I know this from it was not just a dream. This was like one of those lucid dreams. I met one of my guides, and he told me, you need to remember who you were before you came to Earth. And I had to just kind of close my eyes, so to speak, and then I could see myself that I was a bright yellow, golden, white light. And it's like, oh yeah, how could I forget that? But there you are, and that's who we really, really are. And we come into this flesh and deal with this really weird world. So you remember things when you were 2, and you had spiritual encounters. Same. Your poison was cake. That's my poison now, too. The chocolate. Then why do we have the amnesia, right? I think it's because for the growth, to make it a little harder. Yeah. Because if we know too much, I don't think it's as challenging. I think that's part of it. And I think we can get too much noise in our head. I think some people will go absolutely insane if they had all that information. I believe we are currently bumping up our ability to absorb greater frequency, more difficult abstract thinking than we have in the last 10 to 20 years. Definitely happening. I don't know that we're going to have, this golden, age and all this. I tend to think for us it's going to be a lot of work, but going in a good direction. And that's the good thing. I'm very wary, I must tell you, of people that are promising that we're going to have this golden life after Trump. Be very wary of anyone promising too much. But I also know that we need to understand we will eventually have universal health care. I did readings months, maybe even a year ago or so on that. And I was surprised to see it. Now I'm not. Now it feels in some ways more real of a possibility because we are, as a society, going to be demanding it from our government, especially after Trump. Israel, those soldiers, they've got universal health care. They're, as far as I know, not having trouble getting coverage. At least I hope not. Ours do. The VA is a joke. But back to why we have the amnesia. I do think that it's acting as a really strong filter so that we work on the various challenges that we've lined up for ourselves. That's what I think. And the other part of I will call it a dream, but it is a special dream, as I refer to it, where I was told about remembering who I was, who I really am. When my guide came through this doorway to talk to me, I had 2 guides, and he said to the other one, she doesn't remember. Another one, he was like he thought it was, he was being kind of lighthearted about it, saying she doesn't remember who they are. She doesn't remember who she is. And that's when he came over to me and he said, you need to remember who you were before Earth. And it just seemed like, oh yeah, I didn't question that. I understood completely why he was trying to trigger it. And so there's bits of more information, I feel like, since having that dream over, I think in the last 3 years I had that dream. Right around the time that we're getting all of this with COVID and this awakening, it's really truly happening, very very truly. But it's an opportunity for us to reset the direction in which we're going in our lives, and of course that means also calling out government on their nonsense, and that will happen, and it's meant to. That's why we're going through this. Exactly. It is a means of self-preservation. Some people would go insane. It's very hard as it is. If you have an NDE or an S, which is what I would probably call that dream, a spiritual transformative experience like that is just like, you don't forget those dreams. They're spiritually transformative. And so that is, I think, what was I saying? I'm sorry, I'm trying to ignore my folks here in the family talking. Sorry if I have to ask them to be quiet here in a second.
Please stop ignoring me.
Hang on a second, folks. I'm sorry, I have to put you on pause or on mute. Sorry, you guys. My oldest is having a temper tantrum, and I'm probably going to have to go ahead and close off. And I will do this another time when I don't have her coming out and having an adult temper tantrum that I have to deal with. When I can actually have some time with you guys, like a grown-up. So I'm going to cut this live off here. I am so sorry to have to do this, but I'm worried that she's going to come back in and start screaming and yelling. And she's not had some sleep, and the cat's in there. She's having to keep her door open, and my voice is keeping her awake. I tried to offer her earplugs, didn't want to accept that. I'm going to go ahead and look at your comments here, and then I'll close up, and I will redo this, and she can figure something else out. Maybe getting her own place would be good. All right. You're starting to stop and remember that not everyone is, yes, on that journey. That's just it. People are at different places. And it's hard to remember that, especially when they are getting on your nerves, such as mine. And it is great to connect with people that are having these dreams, and these experiences. That's the thing that brought me here, because really I'm introverted. As you can see in my home, I've got a lot on my plate to deal with. it's hard to get personal free time. I marvel at people my age that don't have interruptions like this. But we are growing. We're all getting there. Oh, thank you. It's just embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. To tell you the truth, it just embarrasses the hell out of me. And I try to let them know, give them advance, but, you know, it's what it is. So I'm just going to answer these and she can deal with it till I'm finished. Okay. When did you discover your spiritual abilities? Really, as a child. One of the places I grew up, one of the first houses that I grew up in, was on Francis Street in St. Joseph, Missouri. It's a historical home now, and it is part of a haunted tour, typically every year. Hope they're still doing it with that house, but anyway, that's where I saw spirits, and I saw the spirit of the man that had built the home in the 1800s, and he was not nice. He was not a nice spirit. And one night when my dad, because like I said, associate professors don't get paid a lot of money, he would do also typically more than one job. So he also taught night classes. Well, one night he was out teaching these night classes, and I was about 2 years old, again that age. And I remember it. I was lying on my mom and dad's bed next to my mom, because my dad was out teaching, and my mom and I were asleep. And I woke up and I sat up, and I just felt like someone was staring at me. And I look over in the corner of their bedroom, and there's this transparent white kind of foggy outline of a man, but he's looking at me, and I can see him from about waist up. The rest of him is not visible, and he's just leering, angry, and definitely sending that message of "don't want you here, leave." And he would torment me, and we lived there for 7 years. And as I got older, shortly before we moved, I was getting less and less activity where him haunting me was concerned. He would slap me in my sleep. It was him. There was just, it sounds crazy talk, and I wouldn't believe it probably, but I experienced it, so I know this stuff can happen. My mom would hear the sounds of women's gowns like they wore in the 1800s. I never heard that, but she did. The swishing. And there was a staircase that was a main feature of the house, and that's around where she would hear it, and by her bedroom. And that was the one and only time I ever saw the male spirit there. He was nasty, and you could feel it. There was just that constant feeling of someone looking at you and wanting you to leave, wanting you out of that house. Not at all, just family. Oh, yes. Yeah, and unfortunately they're older than that, but as I said, special issues on the spectrum, and tantrums, meltdowns are part of that, even though they're over 30. And that's a big stress I have. I'm worried about them once we're gone. I bet we are from the same soul family. Uh-huh. I truly believe we are kindred spirits. I think we all are. I think, we probably just don't remember it. We said, yeah, we'll join up online. When they come up with that, then we can all, come and reconnect. Not crazy. You've had your ankle grabbed. See, I love hearing about what you guys have to share too. So you had your ankle grabbed and had something touch your back. Yes, these things happen. And, right, nowadays that's so different, especially like I said, if you have adult children that are on the spectrum. They don't have often good self-regulation. So there's another thing I signed up for. Yeah, dealing with that. That will teach you patience. That will teach you patience and make you want to eat your heart out. And that's why I have nothing but patience and time for people going through hard times as parents and young people too. You know, it's not easy for them either. Yeah, so that's when I coming up. And then, you know, when I got into adolescence, I started leaving my body. And, you know, I didn't know about doing that. So around like 10, 11, and 12, I started having dreams where I was flying out of my body down the staircase in another house that we lived in. I had dreams where also where I would be told things that would happen, and nothing really, really big. That would only come later as an adult, like I said, with COVID, and before that with other people that would be passing, things like that, you know. You just get kind of a feeling. So that all kicked off, and I really do think, you know, I came in with it, and I'm just continuing to develop it. But as I said, I don't just have this happen at will. It does not happen that way. It happens when I'm obviously the most receptive, which is generally in sleep, given my life and the family issues and stuff like that we have to deal with. So a lot through sleep, and then with the cards just helps me to kind of anchor back in and use my intuition. You had a spirit tap you on the side of your head one night. Yeah, you know, they like to do that. I mean, that's really where we can feel it. And it's like, you know, it's like if you get that telltale feeling of that yank, it's something. And it's never not surprised me. One night, again, this was back now, before, this was still, let's see, I lived in San Bruno at the time, 1989. Okay, so 3 years after my accident, I was living in a home in San Bruno, California, and I saw a cat, a calico cat, but I could see it was transparent, but it was all in color, and it was like someone turned on a movie projector. And all of a sudden, I looked down my hallway, and there's this cat walking about that much up off the ground towards me, not bothered that I'm there at all. I don't even know, to tell you the truth, if it was aware of me, but it disappeared in mid-step walking toward me. And I just said out loud, I was watching David Letterman, and I was sober as a judge. I just said, my God, I don't believe what I have just seen. And I went back freaked out to my mom, who was asleep, because it was probably about 11. That's when David Letterman came on or whatever. And I was like, Mom, I just saw a cat, because we were living together then. And she was like, oh yeah, I'm seeing stuff out of the corner of my eyes all the time. And she's like, don't worry about it. And she went right back to sleep. And it wasn't anything to be worried about, but it was weird. I mean, like, you can't, that's really hard to reckon with. So going back to the question of why the amnesia, definitely because you have to, I think we have to kind of stretch that muscle to be able to take in a different reality than the one that we get enmeshed in on Earth to gain the growth, I think, that we're here to do. Do you think your disability? Definitely strengthened my abilities. Absolutely believe that. By silencing the outside world. Yes. And here's the other interesting thing. Not being able to, to be physically active the way I would have been, because I would have been out hiking. Trust me, I was not ever super sporty, but I like to be outside. I like to hike and go for walks. In the summertime in Missouri, I would walk 6 miles just so I could go see a friend. So here I was in a very different, also culture shock, going from a smaller community to, California. And not a smaller, what is deemed smaller here is very different from the Midwest and the South, as you can well imagine. But I really think that the energy of Missouri and those feel so different too. And the energy of California, it really did open me up to feeling and sensing different places, different kinds of energies. Absolutely. And when you have to be still and know that I am God, so to speak, you are drawn closer to God because you're often sick. And unfortunately, many times I've come close to passing. And you also have experiences that, especially for me, that would let me know, hey, dummy, you're quite sick. You need to get to the doctor. Like I would dream of a dark spot in my stomach or whatever. So that definitely upticked after my accident. Dream time, before I had my kids. And I had my kids young at 22 and then 23, or 24. So I had that time from 17 to about 22 to have all these dreams. And boy, did I was dreaming about Native American spirits of the land, communicating to me about their concern for their grandchildren, so to speak, and the drugs and the booze and stuff like that on the reservation, and the fact that that's getting them all caught up and being able to thrive. That was one of the things that they telepathically communicated to me. They were very powerful beings. This sounds crazy. I know. I dread even talking about this, but I know I meant to. I get to humiliate myself, but it's important. Other people have these dreams, and maybe it'll mean something to them. Hi, Artist Liz. So they informed me of that, and they taught me certain things that I didn't know and only come to find out later when I researched stuff. So then you figure out there's no way I knew this. And I was not exposed to this information. More things like that were happening. And it's like that I learned a lot through them, through their contact, and then through just non-earthly based energies, beings as well. And I'm just a little receptor, that's all, little receiver. Humiliated in the ways that I'm really introverted, and I've had people say, oh yeah, when you try and tell them something like this. So there's always the little butterflies in my stomach hearing myself, telling about these experiences. But I know that I get through that because it's going to make sense to someone else that's had that, and I can endure someone else that hasn't had that experience, doesn't believe it or whatever. I get a lot of comments sometimes that way, but not as many as probably other people. I've got a small channel. I love hearing all about this. Thanks, James. I didn't know whether or not people would be interested. Personally, I'm always interested to learn about other people. I love reading biographies and what do they call that? Memoirs, things like that. I like to hear about what people have gone through. And one of my theories is that each one of us becomes like a library, if you will, of information from our lifetimes that we bring back to the world of spirit. We bring that knowledge. One of the dreams I've had is that there are, like many other people have indicated, there is like information constantly is being updated, and there, for instance, one of these spiritually transformative dreams was I was aware of a man that had been Native American in his earthly life, but I saw him in a way, in construct, in a way that my mind would understand, that he was at a computer and he was logging all the new and different kinds of life in the universe that were growing and becoming. So people have a really dumbed down idea about what we do on the other side. We don't just sit on a cloud and strum a harp, we are working there too. And for instance, like it was shown to me of this fellow researching new life that is developing throughout the universe. And I was just like, wow, And I think that our lives are collective information from living on Earth and what it means, and all our experiences, I think, provide information. And I think that's one of the reasons why we can use things like the tarot. That information is there. It's not that it's hidden. I mean, it is hidden. It is there. It's not that it's not there. It's just hidden. And we have to learn how to scoot the lid a little bit to let that light out. And tarot cards help in doing that. Dreams definitely do, because for most of us, that's when we're most receptive. Our brain is on. Let's see what you're saying. Oh, thank you, Artist Liz. I think you guys are too. One of the things I thought was, I used to get caught up in the numbers game about number of subscribers and stuff. YouTube has a really awful way of doing that. And plus, just I think as a person, we tend to think, oh, so-and-so's got more than me. Then maybe people don't like me as much. And it's really, I'm over that now, I'm glad to say. My spiritual mentors reminded me of Maya. It's important that certain people are the ones that are going to be drawn to you. And that's who you're there for. And don't worry about any other thing. Just put it out there and don't worry about that. And that's been like, that just makes me, it's like takes off, as a content creator, takes off a load of weight. Because it's like, no. And what I see statistically too with my channel is that I have return viewers. And a lot of people don't. You'll hear them say, a lot of you view my content, but you're not subscribed. I don't say that. I just ask you to subscribe if you like the content. So there's that. It's so nice just to chat with you guys too. And that's what I think, the collective experience of us all. Because I know that through, when I go to sleep, I have been able to tune into others that I am not. But I can kind of rest in their mind or what's going on with them. I'm aware of, if you've had that, then you know what I mean. It's like you're resting in their conscience. And they can it's why there's no lies in heaven. Everything is telepathically known. Lies happen on earth. But no. And that was another part of the dream that I had, where they were telling me to remember about being, who I was. And they didn't tell me either. They didn't say, Maya, you're actually a light being. They made me pull it up for myself. But it is all about us remembering now and reclaiming our power. That we are intelligence, a greater collective intelligence, many that make up the one, and we're fragments of I think the great one. And definitely thank you. Let me see what else you guys are saying here. Yes, the battle of the ego. And the thing that occurred to me, and pardon me if I drop my thought, because definitely going through, on the other side of menopause here, my brain is doing that. It's okay, I notice other content creators doing it too that are younger, so I don't feel too bad. But yes, this is part of the amnesia as well. If we didn't have more amnesia, battling the ego wouldn't be as maybe of a challenge, perhaps, for some of us. But it's really about, in my opinion, becoming awake and being able to tell the difference between that higher vibration that you are and the earthly being that you're currently portraying, living as. It's two different worlds. So I think it's difficult sometimes also for people to understand and make sense of. And that's been said by people. Oh, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you. You probably don't remember, but when my aunt died, you read on it and gave me a very calming message from her. I vaguely, but because I read for so many people, I don't remember a lot of it until I play the video back, or I might remember bits and bobs of a reading, but mostly I don't. It helped me to let go. I'm so glad of the anger that you felt toward your grandma for how she treated her. I am so glad. See, this is what makes worth putting aside any momentary feeling of being a little bit shy about being on the camera and talking about things and giving what I honestly get. Because one of the things with me is what you see is what you get. I'm too tired to lie, frankly. I don't see the point. So I'm not going to just think, well, I bet she'd really like to hear da-da-da. I'm going to see what it is and give the message that makes the most sense to me with what I'm seeing. And I'm so glad that helped, because this is part of what we have to do, is to let go of our negative attachments that most of us don't even realize we have. Our negative ways of coping with things, and rather than learning how to let things go and not try to control everything, the ego, once again. So we're doing that. We're beginning to do that. And I think humanity largely is moving forward. And with the news, unfortunately, you wouldn't think so. That's why I try and urge caution when you ingest the news from various media, because we don't get ever an accurate account of each day. You know, we're being given what is sensational and will draw clicks and views and money. And I think it's the money thing that society is going to be working on, especially in America. Here's what I think, all right? I think we're going to be working on getting the money out of politics. This goes back to my readings also on getting universal health care in America. I also feel like APAC is going to be like out at some point. And we're going to make America actually a much better place than it's ever been. It is going to be working toward the conscious inclusion and equality of human beings, and not just human beings, our environment. You know, become stewards. That's what we're really here to be and do for each other and this planet. Be stewards, in my opinion. That's what I think. Nor are there lies in the cosmos. See? Exactly. So that's why I think that when we have too much of a negative attachment, too afraid of things all the time, like I was afraid to go to California because I thought it'd be too big. It's a shame I didn't. I probably wouldn't have been, probably not, but I don't know. Maybe it would have happened out in California, the accident. But it doesn't matter. I'm here, I'm where I need to be, and I've got some really damned hard lessons that I'm still going through. So apparently I'm right on right on schedule, and you probably are too, with what we're all going through. And I told, oh, you did. And I told about it to my cousin. She was really happy too. I'm so glad. This feedback is more to me than any, and I might make $100 on this channel every month or two if I'm lucky. But it means more to me than any of that. It's right up there with having children and being, feeding people good, wholesome food, and you see that they like the food, and you're like, oh, that's how this makes me feel. So that's what my aim is. It's never to, you got to pay $200 to take my class and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that. No. I will teach you about the tarot for free and urge you to do the homework yourself, but I'm not going to rip people off through tarot readings and stuff like that. I see a lot of that on here, and it's why, to be honest, why you see me not joining up with a lot of various different people. I find that with my health, I need to really have it on my own schedule, because as you guys see, I can suddenly need to do the live later, or my health issue might come up and I might be better the next day. I really need that flexibility. And when you have someone that you're reading with, the time has to be broken down for each person to be able to give their input. And that's less and less time for you to personally be able to say what you want to say, because you're sharing that time with another person. Call me selfish, but I don't feel like I give as good of a reading when I do that. So for me personally, I've chosen just to keep to my own self and do readings. And occasionally, maybe a reading now and again with other people. But I would highly recommend, if you're thinking of doing a channel like this, being mindful just about that you got to couple up with someone else to have a show and all of that, because you don't, you know. And I just find too, I feel too distracted. I just don't think I give as good of readings. Okay, James, you're saying, I've got a young lady that I work with, and she likes to hear about the current astrology. I do too, actually. And I'm wanting to learn more. I've got only like a novice understanding, but what I do know is so much, it's so helpful to identify, like in the cards, who somebody might be. And it's not always accurate, but it's way crazy accurate. Try it yourselves. I can only say. You're not an astrologer, but you dabble in it. And I asked if she wanted a tarot card. Oh, and no, it's not. That's what, it's no more witchcraft than having a dream that comes to you and you're being given information, or the information that you get in your mind suddenly when you're awake and you realize something and you're like, how did I know that? This is just fear, and people are afraid because they've been taught to be afraid. And that's where we've been disempowered. We've been taught that we have to have a middle person, and that we can't have a direct relationship with the divine. So wrong, so wrong. That's part of the problem. James, thank you. It will be a glorious day when we accept everyone, no matter what color, creed, or religious beliefs, right? And that's what we're all supposed to be doing. It seems to me that most of the holy people from various different belief systems have all said, basically, treat each other the way you want to be treated. Be kind. And try to, do the right thing. So this getting your panties up in a bunch, and where we get all worked up and say, you are Muslim, or you're Mexican, or you're this, you're that. It's just a waste of time, and it's stupid, because we're wasting time when we could be putting all that energy toward doing things that benefit us all. We're divided intentionally by politicians, those losers. I'm sorry, they are. And, Not all of them, but most of them. Because they promise a lot and it's the same old song and dance. Now things are changing because after Trump, I'm telling you, they're going to be in for a rude awakening. We're not going to be accepting the answers that we can't have universal health care, like I've been talking about. Things like that. And we would not have come to this point if we'd not gone through all of this nonsense. I think had we not endured this crap, we would still be pretty complacent, in my opinion. Maybe you don't think so. Yes, feedback is so helpful and good. And please do check out artist Liz here. She has a channel and does readings for the collective. And artist Liz also understands about having health issues and needing a very flexible schedule. And if people don't understand that, then they're not the right person for you to read with. And, you know, once again, I can say for myself, I think I'm not interested in so much in da-da. You know, I want to relay the message and talk to you as a person as much as I can through, you know, online. And I get that some people like the personalities and that's their thing, but as you all know, that's not what happens here. And it's nothing too personal. I told her both are intertwined. Mm-hmm. And, you know, not to be afraid of that. The fear thing is what gets people. They need to stop and wake up and reclaim from fear who they are. And that's basically, for whatever reason, you know, we're coming here to gain growth through difficult lessons that we can't get through the world of spirit alone. But, you know, we have to be able to grow. We don't want to stay stuck. And that's what, you know, being afraid all the time. Oh, this is witchcraft. No, I can't do that. I can't. It's not. And, you know, really, honestly, if Jesus Christ came back, there's a lot of people that would unfortunately still end up crucifying him, especially when he's telling all the bankers to go, you know, and the millionaires to go trot on. Yeah. Do you think ETs are coming and we'll have disclosure about our origins? Yes, I do think that will eventually happen. I think that we have a little bit more time because we're still way too hostile. I don't think they're going to wait for us to completely be tame, but I think my instinct is that we're coming closer to that. I don't think it's right as close, honestly, as a lot of people are telling everyone. I think that's a lot of hype, and not good hype. I think that we can definitely are going toward that by the fact that more people are aware and looking for them and are pressing now for more information. And again, had this not happened, I don't think that we would be going as quickly as we are yet toward some sort of contact that is worldwide seen, you know, transcribed transmission, you know. I think we will eventually have that. And I think it could be, like I'm 58 now, I think it could be in the next 25 years, which is nothing, actually, unless you're, you know, time-wise, unless you're a human being and aging. But I do think it could happen. I think we're still a little bit behind, though, because we've got this, right now, I think these lessons about, you know, these basically World War III kind of crap going on, we're going to have to get sick of being hostile. We're going to have to get sick and tired of war, period. More people standing up against wars that are wars of choice, and most wars are of choice. And I do see that from what I've been getting happening. And it's interesting to see the message and then see us in real time doing this. You can see more people talking about it, and the energy is going toward it. So they are there. I believe in them. I know they exist. But there's a lot of misinformation, and I think people need to be so careful. So careful. Because I think some of it is secret technology that our government knows about. But I think my guess is that we're going to have, as our technology, expands in our secret weaponry, and it is, now we have ICE that will have gloves that taser people or shock them. So things are, advancing. I could see that pushing contact, but because I don't think that they're going to want us to, blow ourselves up. I think they've stopped nuclear events from, going on and stuff like that. I do believe that that's happened. But I think that we also will have more visitations as we develop craft that might look like or mimic theirs. Almost as if to say, hey, that's not us, that's you guys. I have a feeling it could go something like that. I've seen us all in a world where we interact, including celestial beings, and having no racism, right? No care about anything that makes us different, right? That's exactly. When you're in that space, your awareness is so calm. Being able to be out of the body, that's another thing I wanted to say is huge. Hormones really F with our well-being. They, can totally change our mindset. And I don't think that people fully realize that unless they've had like NDE or out-of-body experiences where they can feel the difference. You're not afraid. You're very calm, and what normally would probably scare the crap out of you, or at least maybe alarm you, you're cool. It's like that you're all right. So it just goes to show that's all here, and we're kind of emerging out of that muck, in my opinion, and learning to put away the negative attachment to fear. And that's, I think, going to expedite this kind of a contact. And already, like Liz is saying, she's experiencing that. And I'm sure other people, and new laws. This will be huge. The big L politicians, that's right. They're really worse than tacky used car salesmen, so to speak. They're con people for the most part. They've been that way. And Trump is the biggest one of them all, the biggest con of them all. And we needed it, I think, unfortunately, to reset our nation. I believe that. I don't know if disclosure will make any difference. Misty says, we still have to deal with monkey mind. And that's just it. And that's why I think we still have a bit of time between now and between that kind of disclosure stuff. But if we were to wait till we were perfect, that would never arrive. So I think it is on the horizon, but still further out than I think than more people think, from what I've seen by their posts and stuff. Unfortunately, I think a lot of that is, clickbait. And Isadora is saying, we're the only country who's this rich and powerful. We don't have universal health care. Exactly. And more, more citizens need to be aware of that and realize the shame of it and how embarrassing this is. It makes our country look stupid and greedy. And it is, because it is being run by greedy, stupid politicians. Amen, says James Rodriguez. And Artist Liz, I've learned some hard lessons even in the infancy of my channel. You just can't trust every fellow light worker. It's true. It's true. And, some people say, oh, they're your friends, and then you find out in some cases that they're talking about you to other people that read. I know some things about, not you, but just about other readers and the things that go on. And I'm like, that's high school. No way. That's the other thing. That's like, nope, not doing that. There's a lot of jealousy, as you can well imagine. And then they put on the sunshiny face, like they're so spiritual every day. Be mindful, be aware, folks, be aware. We cannot understand their intelligence. No, we can't. And fear, again, is going to cause what human beings tend to do. We're very hormone-based type of beings that are pretty primitive yet. And I think we're trying to evolve out of that. And until we get a little further along in being more, I think, all on the level of peace, I don't think they're going to risk. They already are risking their, I think, well-being by coming through here. But I think that also maybe a lot of the sightings could be definitely, interdimensional also. So, a lot going under the seas, things like that. There's so much we don't know. And it's so amusing to me that our scientists act like they're so advanced. Like, yeah, we got a lot to learn yet. I need them to come tomorrow to beam me up. Or Orangina. Oh, I love Orangina. That reminds me, I wanted to ask my daughter, one of them, she works at 7-Eleven, to pick me up one of their Oranginas. Those are so good. Oh, no, you mean that one. Sorry. Yeah, they don't want him. I'm just, why can't there be a bolt of lightning when he's out there holding that golf club? Apparently, he's not run us enough into the ground yet. But his ending is on the horizon. It's coming. I am an experiencer, Artist Liz says. I have communicated with my celestial tribes and have been to different locations where they are. I did a deep dive meditation and connected with them. They gave me messages. And that's what you have to be able to do. Unless you've got that kind of quiet and peace, it can be very hard to be able to receive those messages. And that's pretty much also the way that I receive it, typically through dreams and my cards. But more so in the last few years, I've worked on setting away the cards and just going through intuition and making notes. And it's definitely, I think, helping my intuition to become more sensitive than I was before. I'm moving some blocks, I think. I've only met one of my spirit team last year who is a mantid. I freaked out. So embarrassing. Well, you could ask them too to give you a different construct that's a little more calming to your, at the moment, kind of split nature of human, because that's like, as seeing a large insect is kind of frightening. And I've been visited by greys that tried to take me, and I said they were not good. I don't know what people think, but I knew from what was going on that I had to stop them. So I called out to Mother Mary, and they left like that. So I don't like the greys. Will zap themselves into basketballs. I would freak out too, but they're supposed to be very benevolent. Yeah, I think we just need to get used to that construct. Maya, the world they showed me is absolutely glorious. Tears were running down my face. Oh, I can't imagine. Well, I can a little bit, just only from the few experiences that I've had where I've been shown other worlds. When I saw the Native American ancestors, they were in this world that looked like the Southwest, but it was all the colors, all the grass, everything was like alive, living. You could feel you know what I'm saying? You could feel the vibration of everything. The color was more intense, and I was walking in the dream. I was actually walking down this highway, and it was like high desert, but the colors were at sunset, and so they're this glorious. And in the sky, in a kind of a bow, the arc of the sky, I saw that, like, from shoulders up, various different tribe ancestors, and they were the ones that conveyed to me through telepathy about their concern for the problem with substance on reservations, and their people being caught up with drugs and drink, and how important it is for them to work to get away from that. So I'm sharing that too. But yeah, the land was just beautiful, or the world there. Oh, and in that dream, now I'm remembering more, there was like a big mesa that served like a meeting table, and I saw huge, I think, spirit animals of the various different animals of Earth. There was like bear and eagle and, beaver and, all of these creatures, and they were having a meeting. Now, this was really interesting. And I began to understand the language, and what I came to understand as I was kind of leaning in on their conversation, their meeting, was they were using the Earth's first language, which sounded to me like a mixture of all the Earth's human languages. Okay, but I was starting to remember, as they were speaking this language, what they were saying, and it was then that they turned down the sound and I couldn't hear. They made it so I couldn't hear them. But they were having a meeting, and they were talking about the humans and about the environment, and that much I knew. But they were having specific discussion, and there was a turtle as well. I mean, there was like all these different creatures coming together. And another dream I had was where I floated up, and there were a ring of people around the Earth, all different nations and all different ethnic backgrounds, and we were holding hands floating above the Earth. And the minute that I took hands with people in this ring of humanity in spirit around the Earth, I felt this energy surge through one hand and through my body, so to speak, and out the other and into the hand of the other person. It was like an energy circle. And to me, this is prayer. This is what we do when how powerful that is. People go, God doesn't listen, or whatever. That's not true. It's a very powerful thing to do. And when I grasped the hands of these other people, and the energy went through, I said out loud, and I fully understood for the first time what it meant. We are all one. We are all connected. We are all one. And I could feel it. The collective and the individual energy just was vibrant. And we just don't realize, because we got all this sound, and the Earth's energy is really kind of heavy and boggy and spongy. And I just think a lot of the information is harder for people to get through. They've got a lot of worries and things like that going on. So I just wanted to share that. Love the energy the angels bring. Yes, I do too. And I think I experienced a few in a hospital, and a couple of times many times that I was in the hospital, because when I asked about this particular nurse that said that she had an Irish accent, I think that this spiritual being, maybe it was an ancestor, I don't know, because I do have a little history myself, though I'm mostly Latvian. But anyway, I was in Shriners Hospital that used to be on 19th Avenue in San Francisco. Very busy avenue, very loud traffic and everything. And this little country girl had to get used to the sound of all this traffic and stuff. And I had to have a surgery where they took out my metal rods out of my back. So that would have been 1987 when they took the rods out, because they had been in my back for about a year, but they were bothering me. So they took them out, and I had to stay on this one ward in Shriners that was used to be there on 19th Avenue, and it was night, and I was really unhappy. I was kind of depressed and going through a difficult time, and this nurse comes in, and she's not dressed in white like the other nurses were on that ward, and I just thought, oh, she must be, night staff or something. Maybe they just allow her to wear regular clothes. But she was wearing a skirt, a dark skirt, and a blouse, and she had her brown hair swept back in a bun, and she was kind of a big girl. She was a strong lady, a sturdy build, and she came in, and she started helping me by arranging my pillows and having me lay in a way that, all the pain just went from my body. All the discomfort that I was in, if you know, just was like, oh my God, I just feel so sleepy. And she just was so kind, and I was able to tell her a little bit about what I was going through, and she was just so understanding. And I just said to her, because of her accent and the fact that she was different from the other nurses, I said, you're Irish. And she seemed like she didn't really want to tell me where she was from. That's the other thing they do. And, I've told them now, look, just tell me. Don't do this with me. But she just continued, and she just kind of comforted me, and she left. And I think I saw her maybe one more time, really late at night. And this was a children's hospital, okay? So there's some holy nurses. There are some holy souls, I'm telling you, that linger over and look after, especially old and young, in need of care. Any age, really, but especially children, And these kids were so cute. And many, like I was saying, many were from Mexico, and they are getting... Shriners Hospital pays the bills for their care, and it's very, very good thing for their surgeries, and then they can go back home and they help them. That's what they do for all kids that are under 18. And I, at 17, was just lucky enough to get in and get that care. But anyway, so the next day, back to the nurse story, I thought, I gotta find out who she was, because I've always had an interest in history and everyone's different stories about, their roots and their heritage and everything. I find it all fascinating, no matter where you're from. And I just thought, it'd be nice to see her again. She was such a nice nurse. And like I said, I've been so kind of depressed at that time. And I asked the next nurse in the morning, I said, so who was that nurse that was on last night? The Irish one. And she looked at me like I had three heads. Like maybe I was needing to go to maybe a different kind of hospital. And I just told her, and she was like, we don't have any Irish nurses. And they didn't. They Asian and white people, black folk, those were the nurses. And there was no native Irish person with the accent. And she was solid, okay? I would have told you if she was transparent, and I would have known right then, oh, that's Spirit. But this, I think, was one of the first, I'm going to say the second time I saw a spirit that was solid. The other time, again in a hospital, was this young man. And even my dad was looking at him like, who is this guy? He said he was a paramedic, and he would come in and just sit there, and he would just talk to me. And I thought, he's not from Missouri. He looks like he's from California with that, and this is in the 80s, 1986, with that hair the way he had, and the color for shirt. And he didn't look like a he didn't look like a Midwesterner. And he didn't really sound like one either. So he didn't ever really ask me anything pertinent, but he just told me, "Oh, I heard your emergency call over the radio. Do you mind if I come in and sit and talk with you?" And normally those nurses, they weren't letting anybody in to see me because, I mean, like, I just come up from intensive care. I was a mess, you guys. And here's this guy sitting in this chair. And I asked about him. They didn't know who he was either. And I just didn't say anything more after that because, you know, what can you say? But my dad saw him as well. And he came and saw me a couple of times, and then I didn't see him again. It was just so strange. And he was solid. Like I said, maybe he was an earth angel, but I don't know. It's too strange. So let me just see what you all are saying. Different peaceful world, Misty. You can't wait for that. Me either. I'm thinking we're working hard for our next, you know, our rebirth into our true home. Okay. And underhanded deception in politics is destroying our country. Yes, and the earth. It is destroying the earth. You know, it's ridiculous. It's the short-term gain for long-term destruction, and we're gonna have to turn the bus around. You know. She's very nice. Exactly, talking about behind your back, taking your ID. Yeah. There was one talking about certain if you're a reader, there was one apparently that was really upset that after I had them on as a favor to get them more people aware of their channel, and having them on as I did when I first started my channel, I did because I thought, well, we can all help each other out. And I thought that's what we were doing. But there were some people that I found out that said, well, Maya didn't give me any of the money that she made that night. Guys, I made like maybe $5 or $10. People don't have a lot of money that follow me. And I don't want people to spend money they don't have. This person is all about being seen with the big channels. I'm not going to say who they are. But they were talking about me, saying that because I didn't give them a cut of maybe $5 or $10 and I was having them on my channel, they were getting the benefit of my viewers, you know? I just thought, oh, and when I heard that, I thought, this is another reason why I will never do that kind of stuff again. Yeah. Yuck. So that happens. Yep. And that's why you'll see a lot of us that just read on our own. We're not in it for the drama. It's just not comfortable. And you definitely don't want to be they definitely don't want oh yes, the orange. Okay, let me just catch up with you guys. Oh yes, eclipses. Boy, you know, I used to kind of go, oh yeah, eclipses, sure, they're powerful, yeah. And then they started kicking my ass. And I started to realize, yeah, I'm starting to go through deep experiences around full moons and eclipse times. It tracks. It's not a joke. It really can affect you. Just know that. You've been seeing a lot of angel numbers. Me too. I just saw, just the other day, what was it? 111. So to me, that's like urgent, pay attention, number one, beginning. You know, it's kind of a dynamic number to me. But I also saw 4s. So that's interesting. That's good news, Adora. Okay. Angel numbers with you too, Ellen. Mostly about manifestation and creativity. And I think that's really, despite the mess that we have going on with government, that's why we need to, keep an eye on that, but work on ourselves, work on our, not get drained by that. I'm really concerned for people, but I'm just glad we're getting through the lion's share of the time that Ding Dong is in office. Every few months now, you've seen the angel numbers. I should, you know what? I should try to make note now, too, in my notebook and see if I can log a difference and see if I notice something. And you can smell it as well. Yes, yes. Sometimes when I'm reading for people, I've been able to taste certain things like beer. I remember in one case I was reading, and this is some while ago. It's just amazing and I don't normally do that, but I think they also call that synesthesia or something like that. And I get that occasionally. But yes, on the other side, or in the worlds outside of Earth, you have so much more knowledge and awareness that you just instantly know and feel and understand. Like you're saying, like Liz is saying about smell, color, even though you're not necessarily dependent on a physical body in those places, though we do visit them while we have a body. You can. And numbers have always been about protection, and to believe in yourself and your future. That's powerful. Don't change the fan settings. It sounds like a cat purring. Very appropriate for your channel. I might have to because my computer will get too warm. That's so reassuring and beautiful. Once I was a bit lost and depressed, questioning my faith. I was walking around and sat down on a bench. An elderly lady came up to me, sat down and started telling me about her faith. Oh my goodness. I knew she was sent to me. She was human, but she was definitely sent to me, at the right time, and her presence was so calming. And that's just it. Sometimes we need to be open also to being used for that, you know? And that's why, like with the channel, I've learned how to come out of my shell, so to speak, because I do have a part of my nature that's capable of being more extroverted. And I do enjoy it. But I just have to get over that initial of fear of like being seen. Because I'm used to like, I'm back here, don't you mind me. I'm very chill. So that's so great that you guys have been asking and sharing with me the questions and your own experiences. And I think it's important that you do as well. And that's part of why I also wanted a platform, was because I thought, well, not only can I say how I feel, but there's a platform that I can give to other people to write down how they feel and things they've experienced. And then other people can read that. So I hope that you guys seeing this or watching this will please do that, because I love to read about what other people experience. It helps me to understand a lot of times more about what I experience. I hope other people that are viewing this will do that. Okay. Well, you guys, I tell you what, I'll go ahead and sign off because my little laptop is quite warm now. But it was lovely having a Q&A, and I will do this more on a regular basis. Next Sunday, just so you know, we'll pick right back up with the 5 questions. So if you have questions that I didn't get to this time, save them for next Sunday, unless you get somebody else to read on it. I'll be glad to do that. Just make sure you get your questions written down soon enough directly into the chat log for the live on next Sunday, and then I can read your questions. All right? All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you for those that have just joined my new membership. Again, I'm trying to keep it at a low price. We'll be having more chit chats like this because I think this is just as important as reading cards for people. It is touching in with folk and having conversation. All right, you guys. You're welcome, Miss D, and everyone, Ellen, Artist Liz, Isadora, James, everyone, and those of you that watch this later. Thank you so much, and feel free to write down stuff in my comments. You're more than welcome. that you've experienced, like I've said, we benefit everyone, you know? All right, take care. See you soon. Bye. Thank you.